Hi everyone. So today's video is going to be talking about the chambers of the heart and how blood flows within the heart chambers. So let's get started. But before we do that, you're going to need two pencil crayons. So you're going to need a blue pencil crayon and you're going to need a red pencil crayon because there's going to be a part in this lesson where we're going to be going from learning about the heart to doing an sort of adult coloring book of the heart. So that is going to be needed. So if you don't have that ready, pause this video, get a blue and red pencil crayon, and then continue. So as you'll notice, there's lots of comics in this video by awkwardyeti.com. He's a very hilarious cartoon writer, and a lot of his cartoons are anatomically correct because he was a medical student when he was writing these cartoons. So let's get started. Okay, so there's basically three key components to the heart. We have our atria, our ventricles, and our valves. So our atria are the holding chambers. So these are the chambers that are going to collect the blood. And these are the chambers at the top of the heart. And their function is to collect blood. Now, the next two chambers are the ventricles, and these are actually found at the bottom of the heart. And as it says, they are the pumping chambers. So their function is to generate the force for blood to flow. Okay. Now, what separates the atrias from the ventricles and also the ventricles from the blood vessels that are attached to the heart are valves. And valves are these one-way doors to prevent from blood from going backwards. So individuals that have faulty valves or leaky valves, if not treated, this can turn into a serious problem because you don't have proper blood flow going into the heart. So if you don't have proper blood flow going into the heart, you also don't have proper blood flow going into the body, which will have, if not treated, very serious effects. So at this time, if you don't have your if you don't have your blue and red pencil handy, please get it. And as you can see, I have another witty, awkward Yeti cartoon. Okay, so now what we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing some coloring. So we're going to color together. So the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to be picking up your blue pencil. And what we're going to do is we are going to say that anything that is blue is going to represent deoxygenated blood. So this is going to be blood that is low in oxygen, which means it's going to be high in carbon dioxide. So the first thing that we are going to color is our vena cava. So we have our vena cava on the top, and we have our vena cava on the bottom. So the vena cava on the top is actually called the superior vena cava. So superior meaning top. So this is going to be collecting blood from the top of the body. And the vena cava at the bottom is called the inferior vena cava. So I'm going to be explaining this as I color along, but what we're going to do is once we've colored in the heart, we'll write in all of our labels. So then the second thing that we're going to be coloring is our right atrium. So this right here is our right atrium. La 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 la. Color, color, color. You're probably doing a much better job than I am. So color. And then this valve leading into the right atrium is called the tricuspid valve. And if we remember from math, Tri is the prefix for the number 3. So tricuspid valve, meaning the valve that has 3 flaps. And the tricuspid valve separates the right atrium from the right ventricle, which is our bottom ventricle that we have right here. And then blood leaves the heart via the pulmonary artery. So this is going to be going to well, let's think about it. The word for lungs in French, ce sont les poumons. So pulmonary has to do with the lungs, yes. So our pulmonary artery is the blood vessel that brings blood to our lungs. So these are all the blood vessels that carry deoxygenated blood. So we're going to start labeling them right now. Another thing that I'm going to do is I'm actually going to be putting a number. And the number has actually become really important for the next thing, which is going to be the order of blood flow through the heart. So the numbers indicate the steps of what goes first, second, third. So our vena cavas are these right here. So this is the vena cava. So our vena cava is our largest vein in the body. So blood from the vena cava pools into our right atrium. Which is number 2. Goes through the tricuspid valve into number 3, which is our right ventricle. Then leaves the right ventricle via the pulmonary valve into number 4, which is the pulmonary, shoot. I have to recolor all of this. This is the pulmonary artery. P artery. Okay, so the blood is actually going to the lungs. So we have one pulmonary artery. So the left pulmonary artery goes to the left lung. The right pulmonary artery goes to the right lung. So this is go to lungs. And the whole purpose for the blood to go to the lungs is, it's probably what you guessed, to get oxygenated. So this is where we're now using our red. So anything that is red is going to be represented by oxygenated blood. XY. Which means that is going to be blood that is going to be high in oxygen, which also means it is going to be low in carbon dioxide. So the first thing that we're going to be coloring in is our pulmonary veins. So just like we have a pulmonary vein artery that goes to the left and a pulmonary artery that comes from the right, we actually have pulmonary veins from the left and pulmonary veins from the right. They pool into our left atrium now. So our top collecting chamber here. It goes through the mitral or the bicuspid valve. I actually prefer it easier to remember as the bicuspid valve. Now, since tri represents 3, bi represents 2. Then it goes into the left ventricle, which is our bottom ventricle down here, where the force is generated in our left ventricle, goes through the aortic valve into the aorta. which is what I am coloring right now. So the vena cava is the largest vein in the body. The aorta is the largest artery in the body, and it's also the blood exiting the body at its fastest velocity. It leaves at the aorta. So we have this colored right here. So now we're going to start numbering and labeling. So 4, so these are 5. So this is the pulmonary vein. So blood is coming into the heart. I'm going to also write it on this side. It collects in the left atrium. Enters the left ventricle via the bicuspid valve. Then it goes through the aortic valve into 8, which is our aorta, and then it goes to the entire body. So the last thing that I actually want to do is I actually want to label our valves. So you're going to just take a color, just any other color that you have, and we're going to circle our valves. So this right here, we're going to label A. This right here, we're going to label B. This right here, we're going to label C. And this right here, we're going to label D. So A is our tricuspid, C-U-S-P-I-D, valve, which separates the right from the left, the right atrium from the right ventricle. B is our pulmonary valve. Which separates our right ventricle from the pulmonary artery. C is the bicuspid or the mitral valve. Goes by both. Which separates the left atrium from the left ventricle. And then D is the aortic valve. Which separates the left ventricle from the aorta. So as we can see from our colored diagram right here, the right side of the heart has deoxygenated blood. So the right side of the heart is responsible for collecting the blood from the body and preparing it to go to the lungs. The left side of the heart gets the blood that's been oxygenated from the lungs and prepares it to pump it to the rest of the body. So the heart basically is 2 pumps that are basically separated by this structure in the middle. So this structure in the middle, this is called the septum. So I'm actually going to highlight this in yellow. Not that it is yellow, but this basically separates the left from the right side of the heart, and this is called the septum. Now, interestingly enough, during development, so when the offspring is developing in the mother's womb, there actually is gaps in the septum, so you actually have blood going through both sides of the heart. And then during the latter stages of the fetal development, this actually closes up. But sometimes this doesn't. So when this doesn't happen, as you can see, you kind of have like blue babies. So what basically that is that you're having the mixing of oxygenated and deoxygenated blood. So as a result, you would have infants that would be very lethargic, not have enough oxygen, not have enough energy to function, and without open heart surgery, they would unfortunately die. So that's why, the heart is extremely important, and knowing how the heart works and knowing how where problems can arise in the heart is also extremely important. Okay, So what we're going to do now is we're going to be looking at the pathway that blood goes through the heart. So if you haven't finished coloring in your parts of the heart, pause the video now, color it in, and then once you're done, we'll move on to the next part. Okay, so our chambers of the heart. So the key thing is that our right side is deoxygenated. So deoxygenated means that it is low in oxygen, meaning it is high in carbon dioxide. So the blood enters via the vena cava, which is again the largest vein in your body. Then it flows into the right atrium, goes to the right ventricle, and goes from the right ventricle into the pulmonary artery where the blood is pumped to the lungs, where we have gas exchange. So in our gas exchange, CO2 leaves the blood and oxygen enters the blood. Okay, so now that we have gas exchange, blood is now oxygenated and it enters the heart via the pulmonary vein. Once it enters the heart via the pulmonary vein, it goes into the left atrium, then the left ventricle, and then it leaves the heart via the aorta, allowing it to flow to the rest of the body. And once it is flowing to the rest of the body, you have gas exchange at your levels of the cells. So basically what's happening is that oxygen is going to be entering the cells, carbon dioxide will be exiting the cells, and then, as you can think about it, we start all the way back at the top. So this basically is a circuit where we have a cyclical movement of blood. Right? The whole purpose, so yes, this is kind of silly, but the whole purpose of both the heart and the lungs is that the lungs, which is again our respiratory system, is to get oxygen to enter the blood and remove carbon dioxide from the blood, where the cardiovascular system or the circulatory system, its function is to pump this oxygen and other stuff around the body. So basically, they work together hand in hand for the survival of the species. So if we're looking at the pathway of blood through the heart, if you wanted to draw arrows on your diagram, you can. We can see that blood, again, is entering the right atrium via our vena cavas, flows in from the right atrium to the right ventricle, then leaves the heart via the pulmonary artery, goes to the lungs, gets oxygenated, then it enters the left atrium via the pulmonary vein. The blood then goes into the left ventricle and then leaves the body via the aorta.